podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Cardiff Central Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cardiff Central Podcast. I'm Harley, your host, and joined as ever by Carwyn and Dan. How are we doing, lads?
Yeah, all good.
That's just nodding your head on an audio podcast is great, Carwyn. Thank you.
great for video coverage.
Yeah, so
we beat the Scarlets, so we're all super happy.
Yeah, it's hunted though, isn't it? Like that's already in the past. I'm starting to look ahead to what's coming. Let's start negatively. Let's carry on.
So let's start negative and down. Back to the pod's roots of just being told we're too negative. So
quite rightly so.
We should be a happy pod. We beat the Turks I'd say quite convincingly in the end. Other people might argue differently on the stats, but I from watching the game, it was pretty convincing after that first 15 minutes, where I think everyone's anuses tightened to the size that not even Atom could pass through. I mean, I had to top up the Spaghetti Junction bit from 2 weeks ago, so that's my best. Then what did you both think of the game?
Can we talk about 70 minutes and then talk about the first 10 afterwards?
No, we're starting negative, Carwyn. So let's just
I start negative.
First 10.
I tell you what, that set piece move isn't coming back, is it? Has to be the least successful move in history, possibly. I quite enjoyed Liam Belcher calling out his coach over it. I thought that was quite quality. If you haven't seen that, Liam Belcher post-match saying, well, that kickoff was Jockey's idea, so therefore we're blaming him. It didn't go well. Fair play. I got to give credit to Tom Rogers where it's due. I thought he did really well from that restart. Bit of a lucky ricochet for it to bounce into Max Page's hands, and then that's all it was written. And then, I think Scarlets just went on from there, took advantage and had all the momentum, and then they've got a massive overlap on the outside and Plumtree goes in the corner. You've got to give Scarlets credit for the first 10 minutes, but then after that, fair play Cardiff for how they fought back, the plan, the way Belcher was sort of turning down 3 points and saying, no, we're going to go for the try. We know we've got them up front. Turn down two 3-pointers, go to the maul, get the try, go back down again, score before half time. And I think that was crucial to and then the defensive set right at the end of the half to go down, was it 15-12 at half time, was it? So when you go down 15-12 at half time, rather than 20 or 22, 12 was crucial. And then second half, superb performance. Really, you can't really fault the second half with. I'll let Dan carry on that. But yeah, it was a really positive second half display.
Yeah, it was a different Cardiff than we saw at any point last season, really. And I think that was the most pleasing thing, was that it was like a growing Cardiff. End of last season, we're getting close in some games. We were playing a lot of nice stuff, but we weren't looking like we were going to go and win games, especially away from home. But it was just a really competent away from home performance, especially in a Welsh derby. Like Carmen says, we got back in at 15-12 there, and we could have really tried to chase that in the end of the first half, but Scarlets had a bit more of the ball. We were quite patient. We didn't go hunting turnovers. We didn't go making big plays. We played the referee really well, stayed in it, and then start the second half. We come out. We played some nice stuff in the middle of the pitch. We ramped the pressure up, win some penalties, and then where we're turning them into yellow cards and Scarlets going down to 13 men. There was still no chasing. There was no. We could have, especially when you're sort of getting 5-meter scrums in the opposition red zone. You see teams sometimes going to really grab those opportunities and coughing up easy ball or conceding penalties of their own, but stayed strong at the scrum, got over in the corner. And then from 65 minute onwards, it was probably one of the best periods of game management I've seen Cardiff produce for a decade, really. I mean, Ellis Bevan come off the bench was superb with his kicking. Callum Sheedy and Ben Thomas as well. Obviously, we score a try then from one of Ben Thomas's clearance kicks, which Johan Lloyd makes. He won't fancy watching that back in a hurry. But really good effort from Dan Thomas, who I will now own up, having watched it back, which I haven't mentioned to any Scarlets people before, is absolutely miles offside from Ben Thomas's kick. He's about 5 yards in front of Ben Thomas when he kicks it up the pitch, and I don't know how the referee hasn't realised. Hang on, how the hell's Dan Thomas appeared right there? But we'll gloss over that, and it's a big effort and running well by Ben, and then just carried on, really calmly, managing the clock, managing the territory. The Scarlets were poor in that period. That they were chasing the game, they were trying to force things, and they did end up making some really sort of basic errors. But our defense was good. Physically, we were really good. Scrambled well when they did start breaking through. And yeah, although it was sort of a lot of clock watching in that last 10, 15 minutes, sort of begging it to go down, at the same time, it didn't ever really feel like we were going to let that slip. we were in control, and you see at like points of growth from the young players, like win it 3 minutes from the end, gets on the outside after a nice little move from Sheedy and Thomas. Harry Millard's there, and like you see when it look, and I'm sure everything inside him was screaming, just give it to Millard on the outside and let him run. But he checks himself, nudges a nice kick in. He's a bit disappointed with the kick, but it did what it needed to do, push them Scarlets back inside their own 10-meter line. And every time we forced them to attack, it was from 60, 65 meters out. So yeah, can't speak highly enough of that period from the young players, and also then you can see the influence of the older heads there as well. The Josh McNally's, Dan Thomas's, Callum Sheedy's coming in. That's exactly what we wanted these guys to do. Ray Lilo was superb outside centre as well. They are adding to the environment, and they're dragging the young players up along with them. So yeah, in that sense, absolutely brilliant. We did ride our luck at times. Costello has missed two very simple kicks there. I thought, particularly for the first one of those, 13 men, we tried to play out from our own 22 a bit and got turned over quite easily. Better teams than the Scarlets will punish us there, but you can only play what's in front of you, and we played what was in front of us very well.
Yeah. So big talk, and actually something that I was talking with Hugh Griffin from the Scarlets pod. He was saying it seemed like the absolute opposite of the game at Cap last year, where it felt like, if you look at all the stats, Scarlets should have been in control, and then this, but then Scarlets pulled away and won last year, and then this game we sort of almost snatched our bag. But then I sort of started looking at the stats in a bit more detail. Yes, Scarlets made more carries, more meters, and everything. But actually, when you look at the meters per carry, and you look at dominant tackles and you look at tackle success, actually Cardiff. The only reason Cardiff have fewer numbers in things like carries and meters made and line breaks is we just had less ball. And a lot of those stats, if you look at it, we had it's like a 56-44 split in possession in Scott's favour. And if you look at all the stats, they're all basically about the same. And it's the same as the ratio of the territory. So
I think with the stats, I listened to a bit of the Scarlets podcast, and they were writing what they're saying. The stats suggested that they should have won and that they were in control. But I think I'd say they were skewed quite heavily by that last 10 to 15 minutes when the Scarlets were getting a lot of ball, and we were we spent a bit of that down to 14 when both of their players had come back on and Belcher was still off the pitch. But also we were happy to give them that. It's not like they were dominating and proper pounding us and putting us under this pressure. There was the Sheedy's little kick into the corner, Winnett's kick in behind. There was another Sheedy kick where we turned the ball over in midfield and he immediately sort of box kicks for Bevan to chase down the right wing as well. The stats will say they had a lot of possession, a lot of territory, but we were basically saying, yeah, we're giving you that because ultimately we're asking you to start from behind your own 10-meter line, and we're happy to soak up that pressure up until the edge of our 22. And they didn't get any further than that. I think the Scarlets will be disappointed with their attacking performance because they had a lot of quality through their backs in particular, but didn't really get anywhere beyond passing it to Johnny Williams and seeing what he could do. But yeah, I just think from a stats point of view, there was a lot to like from Cardiff. playing a bit more in the middle third, which we spoke about last week with myself and Carwyn on the pod, that we didn't do that against Zebra at all, and we did it a bit more this time, and it helped us control proceedings a bit more. And kicking long and asking them to run it back from deep, whereas, you know, against Zebra we did a lot of kicking to compete and didn't really compete, and we didn't compete much again against Scarlets, to be honest. I don't think we recovered any contestable kicks again. But
I think there was one, and again that was one where we caught it and then we box kicked to get immediately afterwards and got, you know, basically we got out of our 22, box kicked to about 10-meter line, and then hoofed it massively long. So
but yeah, stats wise, I just think they are stats can tell you a lot, but in this circumstance, I think they probably don't paint the full picture of the game.
Yeah, I don't think it was one of those where I'd say Scarlets were dominant and Cardiff stole it. It wasn't a smash and grab or anything like that. I think the most obvious thing to say is Cardiff won the big moments. They took advantage of the big moments. The big moments being they've got a scrum, they're down to 14. Let's pound the scrum. Let's put them down to 13. You know, that's a big moment. That's taking advantage. Okay, probably one exception from that is the first kickoff, if you're talking about big moments of a game. But the other moments, you know, towards the latter end, there's a couple of good turnovers. You know, Dan mentioned McNally. He was superb, wasn't he? Let's be honest about it. He was, if it wasn't for probably the romantic element of Dan Thomas's display and being against Scarlets, probably McNally's a shoe-in for man of the match. But I think there were a few things in that game where you go, Cardiff were on top. Like Scarlets were making stupid mistakes as well. There were a number of, I think there were cheap knock-ons. There was quite a few turnovers around that sort of 60 to 70 minute moment, which just ruined all their momentum. Dan got one. I think McNally got a strip, and I think there was another knock-on, and there were a couple of poor kicks as well. But throughout the game, I think I don't think there was a moment where Cardiff would have been fearful, apart from when they were from about 10 minutes onwards in that game. Right at the point where James Hook turned up for commentary for Radio Wales, but he was 10 minutes late. Not that I blame him, but I was waiting on his punditry to put things in the last page. But the overall performance, I think, was good, and yes, it was probably one where Cardiff were clinical, something that they weren't last year, and long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one last thing on the game. So we had a comment through the YouTubes from John. I don't know what the second part of his username is. I'm just going to refer to you as John now. He's basically asking what our thoughts are on our centre combination and the Scarlet centres, and then what about the prospect of a Sheedy Thomas 10-12 axis in Wales? Personally, I don't really want to talk about the Scarlet's centres. Just quickly on the Wales one, the Wales part. Gatlin's made it quite clear he wants a big lad like Grady at 12, and a slightly bigger lad, you know, and a slightly less big lad at 10. So I don't think we will see that. I mean, I think I've been saying for a while now, I think we should be looking at Ben Thomas as a 12 for Wales, just to add something different, because he's physical enough that he can get out of trouble when he needs to. But, you know, you've got that distribution to get the ball out a bit wider. And so for the rest of you guys, your thoughts on the partnership?
Just a quick word on Max Page, who I did think actually had another pretty good game. But apart from that, yeah, I don't think the answer's, if we're looking at Scarlets in particular, I don't think the answer's Johnny, because although he does have some subtlety to his game, I don't think, well, perhaps it's not used well enough sometimes. He does have the ability to offload, does have the ability to pull the ball back and play cleverly. But for some reason, it doesn't seem to be used as well. He's almost, occasionally he's used almost how Osprey's used Kieran Williams as a battering ram and nothing else. And that can be quite frustrating. But if you look at these, you know, I think the best 12 in the world at the moment, the two best probably are Geordie's up there, but I would say Bundy has been consistently for a long period of time now, and that is a guy who was seen as a ball carrier who has adapted his game to become a really top quality distributor. Like I remember him playing against Scarlets out in Connaught a few years ago, where Patchell was at 10 actually, and he just carried ball, and that's all he did all game. But he's now become this all-rounded game, and I think that's what Wales are looking for. My big issue with this is if we're going to go with Grady at 12 for Wales, well, how on earth is he supposed to learn how to play the role if he's only doing it for a month or 2 months a year? I don't really understand. He needs to be doing it against Zebra. He needs to be doing it against Leinster. He needs to be doing it against Connacht, learning against these teams, and then displaying it on the international stage. Look, there are other options in terms of that big ball carrier who can distribute. Eddie James has shown qualities of that. Whether he's ready for being the star player yet, I'm not so sure. The other ones, probably you're looking at I do like Harry Ackerman, but again, probably too young for him. And I'm sure Dan will talk about some of the under-20s lads who are coming through with like Hennessy that has that possibility to possibly develop into that role in the future, even though he's more of a 13 currently. But my big thing with it is I just don't see Gatland going 10-12, Sheedy, Thomas anytime soon. I think he's more likely, to be honest, to carry on Ben Thomas at 10 because he does want that more physical presence at 10. He has said that, and whether that's the right or wrong option, I personally do rather a ball playing 12, but I think it currently in the international scene, it seems to be out of fashion, and I don't see Gatland resorting to it. I think it's a low, Gatland see it as a low percentage play to have a ball playing 12, whereas perhaps Ben Thomas is the safe pair of hands, but he's probably going to play a bit more of him at fly half rather than at inside centre.
Yeah, I agree with everything Carwyn said there about what Gatland's likely to do. Yeah, if I had even £1, I wouldn't put it on him playing Sheedy and Thomas together at 10-12 in the autumn. But I mean, to sort of answer the question, because there's two answers: is what do you think Gatland would do, and what would I like to see? Yeah, I don't see Gatland doing that. I'd love to see it, but I think it's unlikely. From a Cardiff point of view, and one of the notes I've made to say about it was about the combinations in the team. I thought particularly the way Sheedy's linking with Ben, where he linked with Alid, they looked really comfortable together, and with Winnett as well. The way that he stepped up from fullback was really impressive on Saturday. Obviously, Ben and Ray have played a lot together in our centres, so they look really comfortable. And then from Grady's perspective, I thought it was one of his best games for Cardiff, actually, on the weekend. The way we used him, he gets his, people say about, it's time to move him into 13. I just think the way he's used by Cardiff off the wing, he touches the ball off the wing as much as Lilo does the 13 for Cardiff. I think Lilo made one more carry than him on the weekend, but where we're getting the ball to Grady when he roams off his wing, he's much more dangerous than if he was pigeonholed into that 13 position. The way that he can pop up there's the little line break in the first half before he goes through for the try. Then I think if you probably heat mapped him, he's covering so much ground off that wing, and Lilo allows him to do that as well by sliding out to the wing if Grady wants to come inside. So if I was Gatland watching that, I'd be thinking, why wouldn't I put Grady in that 14 jersey? I can use him a bit like I used to use Cuthbert, coming off first phase off the shoulder when we're playing right to left and bashing him up, but also then on phase play I can just say, look mate, pop up wherever you want. Because I mean, Cuthbert was so good at that. Prime Cuthbert was the best of that. And at some point, yeah, Grady can move into 13 in the way George North done in the future. But for now, I think there is a balance to the backline that has a playmaker at 12, somebody a bit bigger at 13. Whether it's I've never been a massive fan of Max there, but Max can do a job there at 13 internationally. I think if Grady's outside him and if Dyer's outside him, bringing that extra bit of pace and when it's a fullback. Eddie James, I think, could slide out quite comfortably as well. Kieran Williams has got the pace to do it. So it's not ideal, but I think you can build a backline that is balanced enough to do that. Versus we don't have anybody who is big and distributes. I think that's the issue in Wales. Yeah. One or the other, aren't we? So I think
Beaton probably, but similar size to Eddie James and a lot more injury prone.
Who's that?
Jacob Beaton, because he's that bit bigger than.
Yeah,
he's a bit small, I would say.
Yeah, but he's not a Grady size.
Yeah, he would need to just play regularly there as well first, which I don't think he's going to get much of a chance to do at Cardiff at the moment. But Yeah, I think Ben is probably your closest in terms of size and carry, and I think he's closer carrying wise to being at the level than any of our big carriers are to being at the level distribution wise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, just especially if the reports are true that Howley's basically taken over the attack from Alex King as well, and it's going to be a Gatland and Howley special again. It is just going to be pretty big. Not necessarily Grady. I think he might bring somebody like Max straight into 12 in the autumn, or Eddie James into 12, but I'd hope that he doesn't stick with Grady at 12 and that he went for that in the summer more out of, it was more out of necessity than anything, because there wasn't a huge amount of fit centre options. But yeah, for Cardiff, I think it's a really exciting looking backline at the moment, with Grady off that wing, Lilo looking as ageless as ever, Sheedy and Thomas linking up perfectly. I've got a few clips together. I'll put them into some blog piece at some point on Thursday. It'll come out, but the way they dovetailed was so good on Saturday. Like the way they can vary it, who steps in at first receiver, the way they can miss out and go straight to 12 if they need to, is so impressive. So from a Cardiff point of view, it works really well. But yeah, like Carwyn says, as much as I'd like to see that, I don't see that going onto the international scene anytime soon.
I think the more interesting debate is perhaps that 10 jersey, as in who gets that 10 jersey. I think Ben, I don't see any reason why you drop Ben from a Gatland's perspective, as in form wise, as in performances wise over the summer, current form wise as well. The only thing would be that he's not playing week in, week out for his region, and Gatland's already shown he doesn't give two hoots about that. So I think I think that's probably the guy who keeps his jersey, and then your other two fly halves currently on form, I think, have to be Sheedy and, well, depending on how you see him, but the way Dan Edwards play on the weekend. But that's nothing against the Scarlets lads, but I do feel my heart breaks for Sam Costello every time I see him play, because he's clearly suffering a little bit of a drop in confidence as a result of playing injured, playing terrible team, playing in a terrible team, losing, getting injured. It's been a never-ending spiral for him for about a year. So it's now time that hopefully he can have a bit of time to get some form back, get some experience back, and get back playing not correctly, but well. And Yohan obviously has been messing around between three different positions. Not playing wing anymore, but was down to play 12. But I think, I agree with what Dan said. Apart from, I really would like to see a 13-13. I think I've always felt quite strongly about having a bit more gas at 13, and I think the guy I'd like to see at 13 is currently injured, which is Joe Roberts. If I'm honest, I think he's the real answer in that position. I wouldn't mind to see a Louis Hennessy in the squad. I know he's not playing that much, but he's got real talent, and I think he's shown that from the under 20s. Obviously Watkin brings a lot in terms of defensive qualities, and beat a few defenders on the weekend, to be fair to him, although attacking hasn't always been his strongest part of his game. I just do think the question is on the 12, as Dan said, it's that who is the player who is a good ball carrier, who can be adapted into being a good ball player, because you can't just be a Jamie Roberts crash bang wallop anymore. You need to have that subtlety, and so far the one that's shown the most probably is Eddie James, but I would like to see Max, the way he's performing currently, be given a chance to learn that role and adapt. And if he's playing with Ben Thomas week in, week out, and playing with, say, a Bevan week in, week out, internationally week in, week out, and obviously the experience he's had before, I think that should improve him tenfold.
I think just to say, I was thinking about what Carwyn said there about Thomas at 10. I think that's likely to happen. I can see a scenario actually where Gatland in the first autumn international starts Thomas at 10 and has Sheedy on the bench, which will bring headlines in itself, because obviously Sheedy's starting ahead of Thomas there at Cardiff. But then hopefully what might happen is if the starting three quarters is Bevan, Thomas, Grady and Watkins still, like he carries that over from the summer, and then Sheedy's on the bench, the substitution could well be Sheedy for Watkin and then nudge everybody out one then. So you end up with Sheedy, Thomas and Grady if we're chasing a game late on. And then we just all fingers crossed that it works really well and Gatland decides to stick with it.
Big game of musical chairs, though. He could bring Sheedy on for Falatau at 8 and then move Bevan into 8, Sheedy at 9, Thomas at 10.
The way Gatland's playing, that's more likely. One name you did mention in the 10s, because you did mention Matt, well, I presume you were talking about Max Llewellyn, and he's sort of showing form, but Anscombe actually is looking all right at Gloucester with Thomas Williams. There you've got a nice settled halfback combination. And a team that doesn't win much, getting lots of players picked for Wales seems to be the thing. So
I think the only thing I'd say about Anscombe is that I wouldn't ever want to predict him this far away from an international window as playing because
he'd break his leg.
Yeah, he could get injured in a slight breeze. Tomorrow. Yeah,
I hope that if that happens, I had nothing to do with it. That's just me being flippant.
No, I'm sorry, I had Anscombe had slipped my mind momentarily, which is not bitterness at all, but I would like to see. I do think he's got that steady hand at 10 that perhaps the others haven't had the time in the jersey to have yet. I think he does bring a lot of know-how. Despite the fact that he's not goal kicking, I don't quite understand that, but a very high goal kicking percentage. And I think he could be. I'd like to see someone with a good goal kicking percentage at 10 as well. That's another point to make. Well, and for both or goal kicking. I know Harley's going to make the point I assume here now about goal kicking. You?
Yeah, Ben Thomas. Ben Thomas is a great goal kicker. Let him do it. Yes, I suppose because was it? So we point out like Sheedy's either 3 from 8 or 3 from 9 kicks at goal so far, which hopefully gets better because a lot of them were on the wing. Are out on the wings, but it certainly wasn't as bad as some of the misses I've seen other kickers miss.
Do you know what? I wonder if it's in the contract, though. I genuinely wonder if it's in the contract.
What, just got to purposely miss kicks? Keep the games close.
No. As in, I will be, on Football Manager, you say, I want to be penalty taker. But it's, I will be goal kicker. Because I do wonder a little bit, because you never see any more that, I've said this before in the pod, but that moment where the fly half goes, I'm having a stinker, you have the ball and you kick it. You have a go.
What was the game? This did happen. I've forgotten what game it was now. But the kick was having a mate and he just pointed to someone else and said, you take the kick.
I know Saxton did it from Murray a few years back. But I can't think of many more.
There was one this weekend. I've forgotten what. Oh, it was Finn Russell. Finn Russell was having an absolute fucking mare for Bath, and he just turned to Ben Spencer and went, "No, you do it."
Ben Spencer's a better goal kicker to begin with. That's the point. He should have been goal kicker to start.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, I know Bath beat Leicester, but Finn, I've had one of the most proper stinking games I've seen him have in about the last 4 or 5 years. Old Finn, hot cold Finn Russell.
Yeah,
it was one of the. But anyway, that's. I mean, other than it basically becoming a small Wales academy, you don't really need to talk about Bath. So I think that's weekend. I think that's the weekend for Cardiff done. We've covered Wales centres. Should we talk? Dan, do you want to just quickly talk about the Rags?
Yeah, only a quick one because none of us saw it this week, and the highlights from Carmarthen. I mean, their ground is so funny. I mean, the camera's under the pitch pretty much. Can't see anything from the highlights, but the Rags lost 31-19 away to Carmarthen. Disappointing one after a solid start to the season. It was always going to be tricky going there. Carmarthen have pushed Swansea and they beat Swansea and pushed Llandovery, I think it was, in the second round. So they're a much better team this year than they have been for the last couple of years. Looked like, from what I could see from the highlights, they bullied us up front a little bit during the first half. Sort of got the gap out. There's quite a few yellow cards, Barrett and Aled Ward for the Rags. And then we've come back into it late on, but a bit too little, too late. 2 tries for Matty Young, try for Joseph Williams. The young backline looked pretty good, but I think 2 areas of concern for the Rags going into playing Carmarthen at home this weekend, randomly, because we've somehow ended up with them back-to-back. I don't know how that works on the fixtures. But fly half seems a little bit light already. It was Oshandawan Lewis, 18-year-old there, who is predominantly a centre. And I think he's come off, and Steph Emmanuel's finished the game at 10 as well, who, again, predominantly an inside centre. And then Dewi Cross come off in the first half as well, who's obviously always good for somewhere between 5 and 9 tries per game, pretty much. So there's a little bit of concern there, but get a good chance to get straight back onto the winning run against home against Carmarthen. You'd like to think that on a fairly dryish looking Saturday at the Arms Park, we'd still fancy ourselves against anyone, and they obviously are owed a performance now.
Yeah, Quins have started the season brilliantly. As you said, it was Aberaf on the second game that they ran close. But Quins have been very good, surprisingly so, perhaps, because no one was talking about them as being anywhere near that top 6, really, candidates. I think it's a disappointing result for Cardiff. I think it's one of those where you go, okay, 2 good performances, 1 bad, what happens next? And luckily, it's not just Cardiff. All of them have got back-to-back fixtures, which I'm not a big fan of, but bring something different, I suppose. We'll see how that game goes. I think there's been a few interesting results this weekend. We'll see how they turn out next weekend. This coming weekend. So, for instance, RGC versus Pontypool being a 103-point game, and then I think, RGC taking home 6 points and Pontypool 1, which does sound a bit wrong. I was going to table it that maybe if you lose by more than 15 points, you should lose a point in the Super Rugby Cymru. But then someone did point out to me that what happens if you're losing by 16, you then go for posts. Like, sort of like, we need 3 points to avoid losing a point. In realistic terms, this could come at the end of the season where teams are fighting for the playoffs and they go, oh shoot, we need to get a plate, and the other team needs 6 points to beat us into the playoffs. Let's go for points. So it could be ridiculous, but
drop goals everywhere.
Yeah, just not on penalty advantage, please.
Yes, in case you have missed previous conversations, the official Cardiff Central podcast policy is anyone who takes a drop goal on a penalty advantage should be given a 12-week ban minimum.
I think mandatory yellow card. Mandatory, at least.
If only we still have the likes of Derek Bevan refereeing, because that would be the sort of thing. Or Tony Spreadborough. Reversal penalty.
A mandatory yellow card. Stupid play. Waste of time. Yellow card for time wasting. That's it. That's what it should be for.
Dan, do you just want to talk about the schools action getting back underway?
Yeah, Bucks Super Rugby started last weekend. Cardiff Uni have got Ollie Das on the wing, one of our new academy guys from the Exile system. I forget what school he played for, posh English school with very, very long name, like Hurst Pierpoint or something. But they lost 33-50, which is a bizarre scoreline, at home to Hartbury. And then the Met beat Swansea 24-34 at St Helens in a very good game, to be fair, last Wednesday night. The women's Bucks Super Rugby started last week as well. The Met lost 14-27 to Edinburgh. And then tonight, as we record, the Cardiff clash, the first Cardiff clash of the season is at the Arms Park. I think the Met are the home side officially for this one. But they're always good nights, so we'll update on that in the future. And then the big game last week in the College League, Glantaf against Cardiff Vale College at the Arms Park. And Glantaf beat Cardiff Vale College 2012, which is... Glantaf just go from strength to strength, really. It's a really good result, that. Cymoedd ran Coleg Cigar close at Sardis Road, 10-14. Quite a good losing bonus point for Cymoedd, that as well. And then today, I haven't got any results yet because I think they've only just finished, but Cardiff Vale College were at home to Gower. Cymoedd were away at Llandrillo up north. Glantaf went to Sirgar, which is that. Be interested to see the result of that one because that could well be the final again come December. And Whitchurch, who have started really well, 2 wins from 2 for Whitchurch after struggling the last couple of years, but I think they went with quite a young side last year and have built them up into quite a good side this year. So they were at home to Llandudfri today.
Glad we've got our mandatory Glantaf mention. I thought we missed it when Aled Ward came up earlier. I was thinking, I need it. No, but we got our mandatory mention in for this week. So
they're annoyingly good, so we have to talk about them all the week.
I have to say, I mean, Carwyn, you're doing a great job at pretending not to be thrilled every time you hear Glantaf win.
Who never heard of them? Don't even care, you know. Joseph Jones next girls win. Oh, no.
Before we move on to reviewing the games coming up this weekend, game coming up this weekend, just a reminder that if you like what you hear, please subscribe and on whatever podcast app you use, YouTube. We're slowly pushing our way up to 1,000, and I've completely forgot my train of thought. Just please give us any comments, like lovely John did on one of our reactions that we put out on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. If you like that sort of content, we'll keep pushing it out. We will also probably do it for Wales women because it gives us a chance to vent as well. And don't forget to check out the other members of the family. The only ones really worth listening to are Rap and the Women's Rap, which sort of encompasses Wales rugby as a whole. And
the ones you're on. That's what.
Well, if you listen to Cardiff Central, you don't really want to listen to the other three regions, do you? Really? So you might as well just listen to the ones that talk about things. There's also the Super Rugby Cymru pod, which is quite good, and I'm not on that, nor the URC Rewind one.
Language pod. Sorry, I had a bit of a Welsh language pod.
Oh, and if you can speak Welsh, Carwyn has a plug for you, which he's going to do in Welsh now off the hoof.
Grandad podcast Cymraeg. Diolch I don't need to ramble on. It's a Welsh language pod. What else is there to say?
It's basically the rap, but with three people who actually know what they're talking about and in Welsh.
Yeah, we'll claim that.
So moving on to Friday night, our third Friday night game of the season. Second, and if third, first one being the Bath game. So we're hosting Glasgow. So very close last time out. We were the only team to take a point away from Scotstoun last season, and a losing bonus point away from Centre, and we denied them a turn. So we 4 points off of them in their patch when we weren't as good as we are now. What are our thoughts on the game? Have we got a chance against the reigning champions?
Yeah. Sorry, simply put, definitely a chance. I think, funny enough, I've already been asked this question once doing a bit of work for Yeston's university course. But I think it's a tough one to call because Glasgow, obviously, reigning champions and all that. But they've had a weird start to the season, lost narrowly out in Ulster. They beat Benetton very convincingly at home. So probably you'd call that a positive start to the season, although they'd like to have got over the line at Ulster. I still think there's a factor of under the lights at Cardiff Arms Park, Cardiff can still beat anyone and will still be able to beat anyone. And I do think Glasgow probably the big weapon they obviously have is the line out and the driving maul. And if you keep them out of your 22, that's going to help you massively. You've got to be hugely disciplined. Cardiff don't seem to be giving away many penalties this season, don't seem to be putting many men in rucks, don't seem to be giving the referee opportunity to penalise them. All those things seem to fit into a game plan to beat Glasgow. Yes, Glasgow can still score 80-metre tries and will still throughout the season, but I do think that is a huge amount of the game is to be incredibly disciplined. Don't give them anything. Don't give them any easy entries. And then I think Cardiff have got the players to hurt them as well. On the flip side, you've talked about that 10-12 combination. That's going from strength to strength. The kicking game has been superb. All those things come into fruition, and I think I've already said I think Cardiff will win this, and I do think it'll be close. I think it'll probably be within 7 points. But if we see Cardiff win more games, as many games as they lost by 7 points last season, winning them by 7 points, then we'll be very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan?
Yeah, I agree with everything Carwyn said there. I think from a Cardiff perspective, it was a significant step up in performance from Zebra to Scarlets. It's going to take another significant step up again to match Glasgow. The Scarlets are a better side than Zebra, but the gap between Scarlets and Glasgow and Zebra and Scarlets is a lot bigger ahead of this weekend. So I think looking at their fixtures, I think they've got Zebra the following week before they go to South Africa. So the likelihood is they'll come down here pretty fully loaded and then probably look to rest a few against Zebra before going to South Africa. So um, dry night at the Arms Park. It'll be a cracking game. I mean, two teams that really. Sorry, my cats are fighting in the background, if that's what you can hear. But there's two teams who really want to play good rugby. I think we're a team that does probably cause Glasgow more problems than most in the league, but just because of the way we play. That Glasgow will go up against a lot of teams and as we saw in their run in last season, move a lot of bigger teams around because of the pace that they can play at and the accuracy that they've got, as well as having a pack that isn't going to go and dominate these big South African sides or the big Irish sides, but will at least give them a level of foothold in the game that allows their backs to really get moving. They've strengthened over the summer. Patrick Schickling, Roy Sutherland, Adam Hastings, obviously probably the major signing coming back to Scotland. But yeah. I mean, Cardiff have got a bit of form, a bit of momentum now. I think we just need to step up the bit of confidence in ourselves to play a bit more in that in the opposition half and really hurt them. When we got through a couple of phases, we hurt Scarlets a lot last weekend. But we just need to at home do that on a more consistent basis. We didn't do that at all against Zebra. You're not going to get that opportunity too much on the road. So coming back home on a dry night, we need to back ourselves to probably edge the possession and the territory statistics a little bit to give ourselves a foothold in the game. But yeah, if we're going to do it, we're going to have to score a lot of tries. Same as beating the Scarlets. We're going to have to get a lot of points on the board because Glasgow will not go away. We're not going to batter Glasgow by any stretch of the imagination. But there's certainly the quality that we've got in the side and the confidence that they should take from last weekend. There is no reason why Cardiff don't go and beat Glasgow on Friday night, I would argue.
Interesting to see with Glasgow as well. You mentioned Hastings there. He went off for the HIA last week, as did Horn, and Carl Steyn went off with an injury as well. So those are three crucial players for Glasgow. Carl Steyn's been captain and obviously Hastings is the 10. So don't know. At the moment, it looks like they might be available, but it's not 100% confirmed one way or the other. It depends on how they go with their protocols. Obviously, would like to see them play because they're very good players. But on the flip side, if they don't play, it'd be probably the good news for Cardiff. If it's not him, it'll be probably Duncan Weir, or the Thumb, as he was known.
Mighty Meatball. They're definitely different players, is how I'll put it. Yeah, I was going to bring up the Hastings thing. If he's not available, actually, that's probably something that goes more into our favour. Said looking at the 10s they've got, I suppose you've also got Tom Jordan, who I think's more of a 12. He's that Ben Thomas sort of. He's a 12 who slots into 10. It gives you that more physical option. Quite looking forward to see friend of the pod Craig Manson's favourite aged Australian. If he's played, I do wonder with Zebra. Because of what happened in pre-season, are they thinking we can't take them like? Because is it home to Zebra or away?
It's the Zebra going to Scotstoun the following week.
Okay, so maybe probably a little bit different then. But I do wonder if they will try and keep a few names. But then it depends on what their attitude is to the South Africa tour and if they want to go strong for that.
I think they'll come fully loaded. They'll come fully loaded.
I mean, they come fully loaded to us anyway. But.
Yeah.
Speaking of team selections, how does Jockey approach this? Because we're now going to have a run of 3 home games. So Glasgow Scarlets next week, and then Ulster.
Yeah, we got Edinburgh away and then Ulster.
Sorry, Edinburgh away and then Ulster. So even then, that block. How do you think he's going to manage the squad for this one? Are you going to see some bench players starting? So a few things. Josh McNally's played quite a lot.
The difficulty he's got at the moment is that his hands are tied in a lot. We're running probably a 26-man squad of fit players, maybe 27 at a push. There's injury wise, I don't think they're expecting both of them. He's described as touch and go, which usually means no for this weekend, unless he absolutely has to. Seb's not back till next week, and then some of the longer term guys are still out. So the only player who's back fit this week is Rory Jennings, who doesn't come in for me. I don't think there's a spot for him in the 23 at the moment. Back row, we're running pretty much bare bones already. Back three, Gabe is there, but he's brought Ewan Stevens off quite early in both games. I don't know if that's pre-planned or whether it's sort of a reaction to the fact that he's running himself into the ground, chasing these kicks up and down, and is running out of legs after sort of 50 minutes or so. But yeah, I don't foresee a massive change. It wouldn't ultimately surprise me if it was exactly the same 23 this weekend, to be honest. But yeah, only possible question marks that you can't really answer without being in the camp. How well recovered is Ray Lilo at 400 years old? Is Ben Donnell all right with his HIA? Because obviously he took a bit of a whack from Ryan Elias and didn't come back. And then then there's the sort of question mark about, is this the right game to take Belcher out and put one of the younger hookers in, or take one of the more experienced props out and chuck one of the younger guys in? I'd probably argue no this weekend, to be honest, and yeah, just stick with roughly as we are.
I probably wasn't thinking changing the 20, like the names in the 23, but maybe like saying maybe starting an Ed Byrne and Cameron Domachowski off the bench, or are we basically going to just say same 23 as last week, exactly the same, or are we going to put any changes in?
The only one that I'd be debating changing is Gabe for Harry Millard, just in the mindset of, if you're bringing Gabe off the bench, you're bringing him to move Grady into 13, to have a more attacking option at 13 later in the game. But look, Leo's been playing brilliantly. I don't see any reason. And as Dan mentioned, it seems to be that either Iwan's getting knackered or perhaps hasn't got the top level 80-minute fitness yet in his lungs for a USC fixtures. So I think, I don't really see any changes. You could argue maybe Millard in for Stevens, because he has looked pretty decent off the bench, but Iwan's been playing really well. I struggle to see the other one's probably Bevan. Bevan for Aled is perhaps the only major question, I think, of guys that you're looking at. First teamers as of last season. Does he then come in to become the starter in front of Aled, or is Aled, as he's holding the jersey, keep holding the jersey for a bit longer because he's been playing well? So I think that's the one other debate that I would have, and probably the most obvious one. But everywhere else, you're not dropping Josh McNally. He's played brilliantly. You're not making changes in the half, in the 10, 12, probably 13. As we mentioned, Lilo played really well on the weekend. So you're not changing Winner at 50. So most of that is staying the same. You can't then change many things at the lock because you've got injuries. You can't change many things in the back row because of injuries. So you, as Dan said, you pretty much hands are tied. So I think see what happens with Donald. But the only other one I can think of is Bevan for Aled Davis as an obvious possible change.
No, it's all right. So there'll be no point putting a team prediction out because we think it's just going to.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I wouldn't hang my hat on any changes. If it was Bevan ahead of Davis, I wouldn't mind, but I'm not fussed about Davis ahead of Bevan either necessarily. So,
well, I mean that was kind of my theory between having someone like, if you swapped the props around, and basically say these guys have played a lot of minutes, so we're going to have the bench guys come on.
I could
come off, but
Byrne and Domachowski switching is potentially a fair shot. I think Azza has to start. I thought Azza was really good actually last weekend. Like in the loose, his physicality was really superb.
I think he was it 2 or 3 turnovers he made just purely by tackling a guy so hard he dropped the ball.
Yeah, he was like quietly very, very effective. And then the other player who was quietly very effective, who stays in ahead of Big Mac, was Alan Lawrence as well. I thought he put in a serious shift last weekend. Just seems to be a guy who's literally like playing for his life every time he steps out on the pitch for Cardiff at the moment. And against Glasgow, if we say to him, obviously it was slightly different last week with Donald having to go off, but if Donald's fit for 80 and you can just say to Big Al, look, 60 minutes, absolutely empty the tank, and then we're going to bring Big Mac on for you, then that's a pretty good setup to have as well.
It's not bad. It's quite a fight for fan favourite as well, isn't it? Like it's almost like a generational thing of you turn to people and say, "Who's your fan favourite? Is it Alan Lawrence or is it Mac?" And I think over 30s are probably saying Alan Lawrence and under 30s Mac.
Seriously, I can't pick between the two. One thing I saw was like Opta put out basically a graph, and it just showed like the combined carries and tackles, and you've got like, I think it's like Jack Conan like the most of everyone, and then you just see sort of like Ben Donnell is a lot fewer calories. Ben Donnell, Teddy Williams, and Dan Thomas all sort of like about the same number of tackles but fewer carries. And then Alan Lawrence is a little bit fewer carries, but rounded up the same, so fewer tackles and the same carries. It's just like the standouts, and it's just like Cardiff type fives in terms of work rate. And you're like, God, you don't see that, and I love it.
It'd be interesting to see how the pack goes this weekend, actually, especially the back five. Because I thought in the first sort of 20 minutes or so against the Scarlets, we were probably adapting a little bit to the fact that in last season we were picking packs that were really quick. You know, like Thomas Young, is absolutely rapid, and in the Seb is very quick for a second row, and obviously your front row Carey is a bigger guy, but when he got going into top speed, he was pretty quick as well. So this season now, though, like Josh McNally, brilliantly effective, brilliant physical, but slower. Naturally at sort of his age and the way he plays, I think having Dan Thomas is slower. He's not a slow bloke, but he's just slower than Thomas Young, who is sort of abnormally quick for a back rower. And we're not getting around the pitch quite as quickly, and that probably showed in that first 10 minutes against the Scarlets, who obviously came out fired up at home, Welsh derby, and really got around the pitch quite quickly. But then once the game settles down, we are able to sort of dictate our tempo a bit more and be a bit more physical. So against a side like Glasgow, who will similarly want to come out and play very quick, and they've got a lot of quick players and move the ball well, it'd be interesting to see how we do compete against them this weekend, because I think the way we're going is the way to be more successful in being more balanced. Last season was great fun and we played some great rugby at times, but ultimately we didn't win many games. And so having that option to be more balanced and to still play expansively when it's on, but to also sort of calm things down and just say to Josh McNally or to Big Al or to Dan Thomas, and they should just spend 10 minutes just killing a few blokes if you don't mind. And then, that's quite good as well. So yeah, if Glasgow do manage to sort of move us around quite quickly, we'll kind of think, oh, I wish it was still last season. But if we can wrestle them into a little bit more of a scrap at times and control the tempo that way, then the signs will be quite positive for Cardiff on Friday.
Is that the excuse for the referee on the weekend, Dan Thomas being offside, that he just saw Cardiff 7 and thought, it's Thomas Young, he's rapid.
Yeah, he's come from miles away.
No, what happened is, Dan Thomas stopped, waited for Ben Thomas to go, and then he went with him. He was put onside, it's fine.
I really wanted to do a GIF, because when I watched it live, I thought, he's covered a lot of ground there. I thought I'll GIF this up to show how far he's come from. And then I've stopped it at the kick and thought, oh, right, he's come from miles offside, so I can't use that. So that's absolutely killed my GIF. Brilliant.
It's been on the wrap. I could have sworn he was in the ruck before Ben Thomas gets the ball.
That's exactly where he come from.
I thought it was something like that. I was like, he was put onside, it's fine.
And he just continually moves forward from that breakdown the whole time.
No, it's fine. Don't know. There's enough Scarlets conspiracy theorists when we finished ahead of them in the table when they couldn't understand that. Just because you've won one more game doesn't erase the fact that our 3 worst losses were still less than your worst. But that's enough of the other pod. I think the thing with Glasgow as well is they're a very unusual team that they don't kick much, or they certainly haven't been kicking last season. So I think the key thing for us is our kicking game being one of the things that's one of the big positives overall for the last season or so. I don't think we can give them the ball too much because they will just keep it and then we're going to struggle. So I think we might have to, to counter that, we may have to play on ball. Either that or we're going to have to do what we did with the last half of the Scarlets game and get them right back and then be squeaky clean, and just hope that they can't punch too many holes.
Yeah, and you've got to be smart from kickoffs as well, because like you say, they do run from everywhere. They will run from their own 22. They will try to dummy kick and try and get on your outside inside their own 22 and see what your defense is like there. So yeah, that's the other thing that I'd say. Just be aware of that and not perhaps be fast asleep in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, maybe save the trick plays for second half.
Yeah.
I will rate it. I will rate it if we come out and do that again immediately for first kickoff, by the way. There'll be a part of me that goes, what are we doing? But another part will go, I kind of rate that sort of backbone, you know?
Great if
expecting this.
Great if they had win it as well and they just threw it to Ben Thompson.
Another later. Yeah, how long before the referee just went? You play like dicks. Off you go.
Once you get to the front rowers, they probably go in for fuck's sake. Please just get on with it.
That's a bit. I mean, it's a bit like when you have like the goal line dropout or 22 dropouts, and they're just constantly pitting their back. Like I still think when whoever calls the mark, whoever dabs down for a goal line drop, like that's it. That's the person who takes the kick. I don't care if it's the tight head prop. If they're kicking the ball.
Keen.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, given some of the forward kicking that we've seen last weekend, some very good stuff. Some not so good stuff, but some very good stuff. Although, admittedly, Tipperick is a freak.
Oh, what a kick that was!
Anyway, I'm gonna pin you two down for some predictions. So on the wrap, I said Cardiff by 2. I think it's gonna be that typical Cardiff Glasgow game, which is quite close. I'm hoping we come out just on top of a thriller, because I'm going into this season with a new positive attitude until we get to about week 5 and we've lost 3 on the bounce or something. I don't know.
It's a head v heart one, this one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Cardiff by 5.5, which rounds up or rounds down depending on how the
it's worked so far to just back Cardiff and on a sort of continuation theme. I'm gonna say Cardiff by. Let's steal a bonus point from them as well. Cardiff by 8.
Oh, I love it. That is bold. I mean, and to be fair, Dan, obviously you've covered me on rap last week. You were far and away the best predictor of everyone.
I was thinking that actually after the weekend. I did actually nail the predictions on rap last week. I don't know what's happened there. It's the only week it's ever happened to me in my life, so I'll have to.
I mean, you were quite far. We were both quite far off on the Cardiff score, but both of us going for Cardiff by 3 was the closest. So you know.
Yeah, and I think I just they were all being quite nice to the Dragons, saying, "Oh, you might be competitive in Leinster." I've just sort of decided that as much as you can be as competitive as you want, but Leinster will still batter everybody by 20 points. It doesn't really matter.
I mean, and I'll be honest, I took the moral victory because I went Leinster by 15, and I don't think 12 of those points should count. So because they weren't
that's
TMO,
true,
so
true,
I took the moral victory of well, it was Leinster by 15, and I'm sticking with it. Anyway, unless there's anything either of you two want to add to the pod or plug, etc. We've got Wales women. Yep, gone. I did promise you two a good chance to talk about Wales women. I am jumping off this call immediately to record women's rap for that. But you two, off you go.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously listen to the women's podcast for in-detail analysis, but I've got nobody else to talk to about the women's game because I can't find anyone else who's watched it. So I mean, it's just so disappointing every time they play at the moment because you sort of build it up and think, yeah, we've still got quite good players and they're still pretty much the same squad that did quite well year before last. And in the first 40, they were pretty competitive. I made the mistake of knowing the score and then watching it after, so it was difficult to sort of be subjective about that first half. But I feel like watching it live, you sort of think, you know, we've had fair bit of possession and territory and got into their 22 quite a bit. But it's just so tepid, the attack. Everything happens in front of Australia. A couple of times we have lineouts on the right wing and we play right to left and get the ball to Nell Metcalf, and she's got 2 defenders in front of her because we haven't committed anybody to anything. And then we do kind of fashion like a half break in their 22, and Bethan Lewis is running towards the try line and then decides to take the contact from the defender on the right instead of just running towards the try line on the left, which seems like the obvious thing to do. And then I think the most disappointing thing was, I mean, second half, no impact from the bench at all, minus impact if that's possible. Got absolutely bullied because the scrum went relatively well in the first half. I thought Donna Rose looked pretty comfortable, really, first 30, 35 minutes. And then we make the changes, and yeah, they just got pure bullied from about 55, 60 minutes onward. Australia were offloading, they were playing quite quickly, they were getting hands through contact, and then we were just falling off tackles essentially and inviting them over the try line. So at this point, I'm almost reticent to start talking about Johan Cunningham because I think the players have got to take a look in the mirror really there and sort of say, you know, Cunningham's the same coach who was getting us success 18 months, 2 years ago. They're obviously not got a problem with him. You saw when they beat Italy at the end of Six Nations, they were all round Cunningham. There's no I don't think there's any sort of bad feeling in the camp. I think some of those players aren't playing to their full potential, and I want to sort of go up to a couple of them and give them a shake and just say, look, you're quite a good rugby player, actually. Play with a bit of confidence, take the ball to the line, commit a defender, get your hands through and make an offload. But yeah, that's just my sort of rant on it, is just that they are playing so far below the sum of their parts at the moment and are getting the results that they deserve, really.
Yeah, first half made a couple of chances. Probably should have scored 2, if not 3 tries first half. And then second half, there are certain players that if you've played age grade rugby, regardless of what country you've represented, and then played international rugby, you should be know how to tackle. I think that's something that's really frustrating me, is you see certain players and you can almost say, oh, that's going to be a try before you see the attempt at the tackle, and the attempt is rather poor. It's just got that one. That one is irking me now. I got to be honest, and I think some of the changes this week will hopefully rectify those things. I think there's plenty of players there who do their job well. I think that I'm fed up of the sort of Jazz sideways run as well as almost like that was working 3 or 4 years ago, where Jazz was the most professional player in the Northern Hemisphere at times, or bar England, in the Northern Hemisphere at times, it seemed. But now Ireland have improved. What a win for them, by the way, beating the Black Ferns. That needs to be mentioned. But there are so many more professional sides now that you can't just give the ball to Jazz and hope and pray. It's not 2008 Shane Williams. She's a phenomenal player and still will be, and brilliant defensively. And I'm looking forward to seeing her at fullback this week. But I think there needs to be like Dan said, some players need to look at themselves. Coaches need to look at themselves as well, though. I think you look at the way Australia played. Why can't Wales do some of what Australia did? Yes, they've got some brilliant physical specimens. I've forgotten the name of the tight head. Caprani. I've forgotten her name.
Caprani, I think, yeah.
Yeah, she was superb. Brilliant try. But defensively, that was a bit disappointing. You look at where she's come from. She's gone through 2 of Wales's better players in Beth and Bethan Lewis and Butchers at 6. But then elsewhere, I do think, like Dan said, some players need to take a look and look harder at themselves, because attacking wise, Wales haven't offered what they should be offering. And when you consider how many of them played for a Gloucester side that attacked from everywhere and played brilliant rugby, and if that's not a coaching thing, then it's a players thing that aren't performing to the level that they can do. So it's one or the other. And I think that question needs to be answered sooner rather than later as well.
And if you want to know my opinions on Wales women and WXV in general, tune into the Wales Women's Rugby Appreciation podcast, where we talk about this game and the WXV in general. Just to let us, if you want to watch Wales' next game, we are playing Italy at the frankly wonderfully convenient time of 3:00 Friday afternoon. That will be on BBC iPlayer. It will not show up until about 5 minutes before. So yeah, because why would you pay to have a whole tournament broadcasting rights and put them on somewhere easy to find? In other women's, Wales works there.
Can I just ask a quick question on that? Sorry,
Yeah.
quick. Is it must win for Johan?
I think personally, I'm going to go into more of this, but I think it's a must-win game for Wales purely because I think if Wales are under pressure to get anything out of this WXV against Japan and the way they played against South Africa and how they countered physicality, which is our only strength still, I think we'll implode. I don't think we'll be able to pull it out of the bag.
Wales will beat Japan. I'm confident Wales will beat Japan. I think there's a lot of pressure on Johan to win this game. Brilliant guy, always brilliant with the press, and I mean that. But I think he'll know that there's pressure on him. I think he knew there was pressure on him in the Spain game. I think he knew there was pressure on him in the Italy game in the Six Nations. So, it's close to must win in my opinion for him.
The other thing is the PWR comes back this week as well. Those games are going to be streamed on YouTube. So if you want like friendly time to watch rugby. Before I just realised we didn't actually notice about the team we do a podcast about. Cardiff will be on Premier Sports only. There's no terrestrial TV coverage for us there. So that's left for me to say is thank you all for listening, and thank you to Carwyn and Dan for doing this with me. Ta-ra.
That was the Cardiff Central Podcast. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us again next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.